we should all do these things together, and it's silly for any of us to do them alone, so I won't say that. But I have no doubt that the Chinese will be making great strides. I think it's pretty silly. They should just bring their money and use our space station. But it's a bigger, world problem than I understand, and so I have to think that our leaders understand what we're doing by not participating with them.
Dr.
Yes.
Coleman?
Wherever you guys go.
Over here.
Yes.
I just wanted to say thank you. Your passion is pretty clear, and we really appreciate you being here today. The question I had was, for all the work that you're doing on board the station, have you seen anything firsthand that has to do with applying that work to real commercial, viable products here on the planet? NASA is really well known for tech transfer. What's the next generation of tech transfer going to look like? Short answer, if it's possible.
Well, there's not a way to have a short answer to that question, in that there is so much that gets done up there in terms of understanding the benchmark materials of, what kind of materials can we have. We figure out what structures we could achieve by doing them up there in a place where the rules are different, the physics rules are different, and then down here we figure out how to make the very same things. And there's just too many examples to tell you, except that I'm thinking that if you're in the Denver Athletic Club, some of you play golf. Anybody play golf? Some people play golf. Well, those golf clubs, I will tell you that is NASA technology. Figuring out for the golf clubs that allow you hit further, that is all about metallurgy and understanding what metals and their properties could be achieved, and then going ahead and figuring out how to achieve those properties down here. It happens in a number of different fields. So there's a lot of different things, I think. Go ahead.
Can you talk I know your bio's on the table, but I'm very, very interested in your personal journey to become an astronaut, and at what age and sort of what was the inspiration, your path to getting there?
So it's all due to my Uncle Bob. Actually, there's some of that. Bob was a flight test engineer in the Air Force, and then maintenance for the Air Force and maintenance for the city of Denver. So a lot of mechanics for a long time and a lot of pushing the envelope. My dad was in experimental diving and ran diving and salvage, and when men first lived under the sea. So I have those things. But for me, I didn't think about being an astronaut until I was in college, and I met Dr. Sally Ride. And I'll just quickly say this to you. I look around, I see an encouraging number of women, but a lot of guys. One of the studies, or one of the several studies that I've seen lately, tell me that it is actually a father's influence on his daughter or his granddaughter that is more important than the mother in terms of whether they consider a career in science, engineering, math, all those things. And so you are very, very important shepherds.
One question, practical question. Practical question from a trauma surgeon. Why were you barefoot? Weren't you afraid of stumping?
Why was I what?
Why were you barefoot?
Oh, why was I barefoot? Wasn't I afraid of stubbing my toe? Sometimes it was just nice not to wear, and actually your feet they sort of, peel away up there, and sometimes it was nice just to have bare feet and feel something under your toes. And I just kind of liked it, but I would actually fly more carefully because I would be afraid of stubbing my toes up there, because when you stub your toe, then you're flying by, but it's 120 pounds, kicking something on your way by. You can definitely get really banged up if you're not careful. So I did it. It's probably not the wisest thing to do. It's not the most conservative, but it just felt nice sometimes, just like down here.
I'd like to follow up on your previous comment. Given your extraordinary career, what sort of career path are your two sons following?
Well, they're both different. The 11-year-old this week is thinking he will be a chef, okay? Which I commend him. He said, Mom, I made bread. And he said, I said, did our bread maker start working again? He said, no, I went to YouTube and I looked up how to make bread. They had a video that told me how to make bread. And Mom, we had all the ingredients, so I made bread. And I say this because, your kids are this empowered as well. The kids of this generation, I think, are fascinating. So I don't know what he's going to be. We'll see. And my older son is somebody who's gotten a lot of education in landscape design, the kind where we're looking at sustainable landscape design, both for cities, and we live in Western Massachusetts, a lot of opportunities for that, trying to make sure we really live within the planet. Yes?
Most interesting presentation. Thank you. What's the long-term value of the space station?
That's a hard question to answer, except that, as a scientist, I'm a polymer chemist at heart. I went to MIT in chemistry, polymer science and engineering at the University of Massachusetts, probably best place in the world for that. And the fact that we can do experiments up there that we just can't do down here, to me, is reason enough. And without, you try to advertise, and at the same time, you don't want to put out something there that might not be true. I'll give you an example from fluid physics. Just a little container where we let fluids go in there and take a video of it. We send that video back down to the ground. These fluid physicists analyze this video, and here's what they figure out. By changing the corner angle of that container by just 2 or 3 degrees, it means that all the fluid in that cell is going to go right up the corner, and we're going to know exactly where it is. So on our way to Mars, we're going to know how much fuel we have. Well, that's great for going to Mars, but that wasn't really your question. But understanding those same properties in fluid physics is going to help us understand how to put a lab on a chip. Okay, how to put a drop of blood or whatever on a chip and understand the fluid physics behavior to help us make a diagnosis, so that we can have a more equal standard of care out through geographies where there aren't many people, there aren't hospitals or as well equipped kind of hospitals. Some of the robotics that we do, telerobotic surgery, that is something that's already being done, actually more in Canada than down here in the U.S., where they're having a surgeon be able to operate on somebody who's 500 or 600 kilometers away, and the surgeon is operating a robot over the internet. I mean, there's too many examples to even tell you, and plus one of the reasons we go up there and have this place is because we don't know what we're going to find out. And what I'm pleased about as a scientist is that we're finally at the point where we've got a lot of work, we've got a lot of experiments up there, we have people doing them, and when they have time, not just to build the space station and maintain it, but they have time to look around and look at what's happening and see what wasn't expected to happen.
Katie, can you tell me, a little less technical maybe and a little bit more romantic, where is the space station in relationship to the moon, and can you see the moon as you're flying around up there? You didn't show any pictures, but it seems like that would be quite a sight.
It's beautiful, and I always like the fact, my husband and I commute. He lives in Massachusetts, I live in Houston, and so we always take a little comfort from the fact that we see the same moon every night when we look at the moon. And it's the same way up in space. It's very beautiful, especially a full moon from up there. And the stars are a little harder to see when the moon is bright, but it's really pretty special to be up there. Space looks a little deeper to me, and as we're orbiting the Earth, there's 45 minutes of light and 45 minutes of dark, so we'll have the bright light looking at the Earth and looking in daylight, and then 45 minutes of looking at the cities of the world in bright lights or lack therein. It's actually fascinating to look at North Korea and South Korea, because there's pictures, and I could get them to you, that you'll see South Korea filled with lights, and then you can physically see the border. And then there are very few lights in North Korea. And there's also the line, I think it's called the Radcliffe Line between India and Pakistan, where it's a border and it's actually lit. It's a lit, military patrolled border, and you can see that border from space. So there's some fascinating, views that we have there that I think are very emotionally significant.
If someone were to try to, someone or an organization, have an idea for an experiment that you might do, how would you go about getting that experiment accepted and put on the space shuttle?
This is a really good time for that, in that the space station has been declared a national laboratory. And there's a big push to make exactly what you're talking about happen. I mean, I'm happy to take your information, but this national laboratory is managing research on the space station and trying to make sure that it's we're really getting all the good ideas instead of a little bit of what's happened in the past is that somebody's lab, wants to put an experiment up there and then, has to get sort of shake tested and environmental tested and all these things that has to be done before it gets to space. And it takes somebody in that lab that knows how to do that. So, of course, it's easier for that lab to run yet another experiment. And so we're trying to make sure that more people get to do experiments. And the space station itself was designed as a series of facilities. It's a combustion facility that will do a lot of different kinds of combustion experiments